Coming up on today's show, as you can see, once again, I'm on my own, but I have an idea. This is VoiceOver Ben. What's coming up on today's show?
We've got champions crowned!
And I'll be explaining how Webber had to make that last pit stop.
I've found a World Touring Car Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, actually, do you know what? Your voice is even worse than Rosanna's. Let's get on with the show. Goodbye.
Ah!
And we kick off with the news. And firstly, the F1 race in Japan. It was an interesting one. Sebastian Vettel, of course, took pole position, but he did not make a very good start. In fact, dropped into the pack. It was Romain Grosjean who took the best start and led the field, with Daniel Ricciardo actually backing most of the field up. The top three had a really good run of things early on. Nico Hülkenberg, another starring performance in his Sauber, managed to clear Daniel Ricciardo, but the top three had a big advantage, so they were on different strategies. Come the end of the race, Sebastian Vettel made an early stop, managed to get past Romain Grosjean for the lead, but Mark Webber spent far too long trying to get past the Lotus, therefore lost any chance of victory. And if you stick with us a bit later on the video, I'll explain what happened between these two drivers, because of course you guys on the forums were desperate to see Webber win. Unfortunately though, it was yet another victory for Sebastian Vettel, and that means he can clearly win the championship when it resumes in India. MotoGP were in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, and a fantastic early part of the race with Lorenzo, Marquez, Pedrosa, Rossi and Alvaro Bautista separated by less than a second. Early on though, Pedrosa managed to clear Lorenzo and stretch an advantage ahead of his two championship rivals. Lorenzo backing Marquez up until midpoint in the race, plenty of fender bending, eventually Marquez getting ahead of Lorenzo, meaning that Pedrosa won his first MotoGP of the year, ahead of Marquez and Lorenzo in third. It means that Marquez can mathematically win the championship in Australia next weekend, but will he do so? Tweet us at polepositionp1 or comment below. We did have a champion crowned though in the British Touring Car Championship last weekend at Brands Hatch. At the start of the day, it was between three men, Plato, Shedden and the young man Andy Jordan. Three races. In race two though, Andy Jordan, who led the championship going into the day, crashed with Matt Neal, breaking his rear suspension, and it looked like game over. A massive amount of emotion with huge dark clouds and lots of rain. But in race three, Andy Jordan did enough to beat Jason Plato and take the championship for the first time. And just look at that celebration. It's fair to say everyone in the UK involved in motorsport thinks you did a great job, Andy. Congratulations. Rally fans, don't worry, we've got some WRC news for you. The Citroen team have announced that Robert Kubica will drive for them at the Rally of Great Britain in WRC later in November. Of course, he's leading the WRC 2 Championship at a DS3 for Citroen, but it'd be great to see him with the Works team, perhaps maybe as a precursor to WTCC next year. What do you think of seeing the pole against someone like Ogier? Should be interesting, right? And we finish the news with some incredibly sad news. At the start of the race weekend in Formula One, it was announced that Maria Di Vitola had lost her life with a heart attack in Spain. Of course, she was Mauritia's test driver last year and had a horrible accident at Mauritius. A legacy, potentially, of the damage to her brain was this heart attack. So rest in peace, Maria. But in the last couple of days as well, most recently, Sean Edwards has been announced as losing his life in Australia. He was actually a passenger instructing an Australian driver at Queensland Raceway, and his Porsche left the circuit, hit some barriers, and sadly, Sean lost his life in the impact. Of course, he's most recently famous for playing his father in the film Rush. Rest in peace, mate. This week's Fast Fact addresses a point that all of you guys have been rather vocal about on our Sunday video with the results of the Grand Prix. It was about Webber making his pit stop 10 laps before the end with a 14-second lead. I have here what I am calling a tyre. It's actually the end of a rubber, but it should give you a good indication of how the rubber works on the Pirelli tyres. So when a car is going forwards, down the track, it's just rolling, rolling, rolling. But when it comes to a corner, a very fast corner, it starts to scrub. And you can see there we're leaving marks on our simulated track, and of course we are losing rubber on the tyre. That happens every single corner, every single lap. So you end up with marbles. They're not actually marbles, but they're called marbles on the circuit, and if you get on those, you roll across the track.
There's about 500 kilos of this stuff on the outside of a circuit at the end of Grand Prix. Half a ton, that's a huge amount. So imagine all of that has come from a tyre. The tyre's pretty worthless. I'll tell you where it's come from. One I prepared earlier. You see that? That is a used pencil rubber, or in this case, a used tyre. So Vettel makes his pit stop. He has a lot of rubber left, but Webber is still going around with not very much rubber left. 10 laps worth on Vettel's car and he'll be okay. 10 laps worth on Webber's car, and in fact, let's just do a bit of scrubbing, shall we? Oh, I think we'll give up on that. This is clearly way too good a rubber, not made by Pirelli at all. So basically, as it comes to the very, very end, this rubber will get to the metal and it'll be completely redundant, it'll be completely useless, and that was what's going to happen to Webber's tyres. It was going to get to the point where it would be on the metal, therefore he would have no grip and the tyre would have failed, he'd have maybe even retired out of the race. He had to make that stop, and it did sadly put him behind Vettel, and that was that. That's your fast fact for the week.
It's time for Tweets of the Week. Let's see the first tweet.
At Azifani BBC, spent the afternoon with Marc Marquez 93 in Luna Park to see if he is as good in a bumper car as he is on a Honda.
Azifani there, the BBC reporter with Marc Marquez playing bumper cars. I think that's maybe got a relation to do with his riding style recently, getting very close to Lorenzo and also Pedrosa, his teammate. Lots of fender rubbing, so it's been fender rubbing in bumper cars. Right, next tweet.
At F1 Racing-Mag. At Mauritius F1 team principal John Booth, not sure drivers ought to be eating raw fish on Thursday night.
Yeah, there was actually a lot about this in Japan. Red Bull imported a load of meat and vegetables and fish from Australia because they were worried about contamination from Fukushima. And then Mauritius saying, should their drivers be eating raw fish? It's amazing! Don't worry about it. I think we are a bit precious over in Europe. Anyway, they were fine, weren't they?
At Chambers 5. And Jason Plato, hey JP, what's the crack with the energy drink of yours? Seems popular, at there is none left.
If you aren't aware of Jason Plato, and perhaps you're watching this not from the UK, it would seem a bit odd that this guy who is a racing driver has his own energy drink, but he's sponsored by KX, and indeed Jason Plato's drink is so popular, it's sold out. And that's all I can say about that one. Well done, Jason.
At MST Stefan Z. Now look at that! So many similarities!
Something closer to my heart, other than, of course, energy drinks and Jason Plato. Mercedes have announced or released this picture of what looks to me like a World Touring Car. Absolutely, almost identical to the Citroen WTCC racer that Loeb's going to be racing. They look really similar, but Mercedes has said nothing about actually partaking in World Touring Cars. I wonder whether we'll see a little bit of something coming out of Germany in the next couple of weeks. They look good though, right? Next tweet.
At Max Chilton. Always odd driving my car after a double header, as the only car I have driven for 2 weeks is an F1 car, waiting at the station for at Chloe Roberts 323.
I concur with you, Mr. Chilton, because actually I've had this similar situation. You do 2 days of racing, maybe in a go-kart for me, or in a Ginetta at Donington a couple of weekends ago, and then you get back into your car and everything feels really weird. Max obviously been driving a Formula 1 car, even more of a difference to his road car, but nice to see he's picking up his girlfriend from the train station. Lovely.
At James Moy. Some would say that Sebastian Vettel crowned F1 champion already. Just noticed his crown is in the photo from Suzuka.
And our friend James Moy with his camera back after it being stolen in Korea, taking this wonderful shot of Sebastian Vettel on the top step of the podium with the Rolex branding and the Rolex crown on top of his head. One finger on that title already, Sebastian. We're going to have to wait 2 weeks until India, where you maybe, probably, definitely become world champion. And if you've got any fantastic tweets that you want here on Tweets of the Week, make sure you tweet us at polepositionp1.
And we've finished the race room with Where Are We Next Week? Plenty of motorsport. We're going to kick off, thank you very much, able assistant, with MotoGP in Phillip Island, which is down in near Melbourne, down here. Potentially championship deciding race for MotoGP, so make sure you tune in the early hours of Sunday. There's also the final round of IndyCar in Fontana. Now I've got, oh no, I do know where Fontana is. That's over in America, which is over here, and it's near Miami. It's somewhere around in California, and that is going to be fantastic. Round and oval, one race, no dual weekend. Who is going to take victory in IndyCar? We also have Barcelona, World Series by Renault, the final weekend of that, obviously in Spain, Barcelona, around there. And we have WEC in Japan, the World Endurance Championship in Fuji, if it happens, because there's a typhoon hitting that at the moment, and all the drivers are taking shelter. Maybe that's something to do with the big yellow dot over the top of the whole country. Finally, we also have the DTM, which has already been wrapped up in Germany and in Hockenheim. Always a very good show, so if you've got a free weekend, head down to Germany for the DTM. So much racing going on. You'll see me and me on my own yet again next week in the race room. Until then, make sure you subscribe and please talk to us, tweet us, do whatever you like. Just communicate. We love to play, we love to listen, we love to talk. Bye-bye.
In there, it's been wrapped up by a company called Kit Customs. Beautiful look, two-tone, black mirror.
This has an awful lot of race components, you know, race seats, harnesses, plastic rear window.
Let's have a little look.